This video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com. Hey everyone, do you have a favorite movie that you would love to hang on your wall but you can't think of what scene or what poster to get? Well, now you can get the entire movie on one high quality canvas. With MoviePalette.com, you can get every scene from your favorite movie, or more specifically, the dominant color of every scene from your favorite movie in chronological order on a great high quality canvas. It also comes with a silver engraving of the title down at the bottom. Has rubber stoppers on the back to keep it from bouncing. And they have a huge catalog of what to choose from. Whether you're a horror fan or a fan of sci-fi, Marvel, Japanese anime, Disney animation, drama, or Oscar classics, there's a movie palette for you. Right now, MoviePalette.com is having a sale for 50% off for their Halloween sale. But if you go right now and if you enter room 15, you'll get 15% off of the movie palette of your choice. That's ROOM15 for 15% off of your movie palette. Again, this is a great value for a great piece of home decor that looks great for any film and for any film buff and anywhere in your home. You will definitely like this product. Mine is of The Shining, and I could not be happier with it. So definitely go to MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. Hey horror fans, welcome back to 1237, back with another review. And this is kind of a random one. This is not part of the Stephen King run or anthologies or anything like that. Because yesterday, because technically it's the 8th right now, but yesterday on October 7th, we finally got the straight to Hulu reboot, I guess, of Hellraiser. Now, this was a movie that when I first saw the trailer, I couldn't have given two shits. It looked new and modern, but I just had that feeling it was just going to be another reboot. That's just another throwaway. The whole idea of Pinhead and the other Cenobites kind of being female, at least that's what I thought from the trailer. Couldn't have given a shit about that. But I figured I'd check it out anyway. Now, the main reason why I didn't care and why I was really hesitant is because I am just done with franchises. Hellraiser, they needed one to get right. But I mean, Scream, Chucky, Halloween, I'm done with all that shit. I'm so fed up with franchises. I'd rather just see something new. But Hellraiser, it's a weird series because, and a lot of people say, well, half of them, Pinhead's barely even in. That's because of the 10 films that already exist, 5 through 8 are not really Hellraiser films. The studio just had to put something out so that they could keep the rights. So they just took a pre-existing script that was shelved, retooled it, put Pinhead in it, slapped Hellraiser on it, put it out. So they're not canon Hellraiser films, they're really just rights insurance. And when it comes to Hellraiser, I'm about as casual as you can get. I love the first two. The first two are really inventive, really dark fantasy horror films that I really enjoy. 3 is entertaining enough. 4 is pretty mediocre, but it is still a Hellraiser film. It still maintains what Hellraiser is. Then you got 5 through 8, which just suck. I mean, I can watch 5 and 8, but they're really just horrible. They bastardized the whole thing. Well, actually, the real bastardizing came with 9 and 10. Now, those were 2 reboots that tried to bring Hellraiser back to its original roots, making it actually about the box, and you open it, Cenobites come out, pain or pleasure, instead of these sort of morality tales that aren't even Hellraiser related, like of half of the series. I saw Hellraiser Revelations years ago. I remember it being so god awful, but I don't remember much. I did not see Judgment when that came out. I meant to. I know that kind of went the Rob Zombie direction. So the reason why I checked this out was, okay, this needs a reboot that, needs to redeem itself. Give us one good Hellraiser film that goes back to its roots. And really, the only thing that kept me interested was the director, David Bruckner. I don't care about VHS, at least I didn't when I first saw it. But I loved The Ritual. I loved The Night House. I've reviewed both of those. The Ritual, one of my favorite horror films of the 2010s. The Night House was really great. Very, one that's a director that knows how to make an atmospheric horror film. So I was wondering what he could bring to Hellraiser. And I have to say, I was pretty goddamn surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. This is a pretty damn good Hellraiser film. Now, of course, I'm comparing it to everything since Part 2, which isn't really saying much. It's kind of like, yeah. I'm kind of stumped because that whole series pretty much is so bad, it won't take much to make a new one better, but you'd be surprised. I was very surprised. It looks good. It's fairly well acted. It went the Friday the 13th reboot direction where it took elements of the first 4 films, incorporated it into this, because the first 4 are really the only true Hellraiser films. But I thought that was a very good idea. They didn't copy and paste the Cenobites. 3 of them are rebooted, but they do have a bunch of very different and original Cenobites. Even the ones they bring back, they don't look the same. It's not like the black leather sort of 80s S&M look. I actually do like the look of the Cenobites. That was something that really worried me when I saw the trailer. They kind of look female, but they do have an overall anthropomorphic kind of appearance. And it still has that very sleek, clean, almost sterile, but also visceral and gory look to them, which I really enjoyed. So, as I said, directed by David Bruckner, written by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, based on a story by those two and David S. Goyer, who worked on a lot of DC films, for better or worse. And it stars Odessa Azion, which she actually looked familiar, but I don't think I've seen her in anything. She's in a lot of to-be-announced films. Okay. Her, Jamie Clayton, Brandon Flynn, Goran Visnjic, Drew Starkey, Aoife Hines, Selena Lowe, and Chaim Abbas. Cinematography by Eli Bourne, and the music was by Ben Lovett. And I do want to take a moment to talk about the score, because a lot of reboots, when they take the score of the original film, it's either very frivolous, tasteless, or just used oddly. When this uses the original Hellraiser score, it's during a big, major Hellraiser scene, and it works. So I was very pleased about that. Now, I want to see who... technically, Pinhead isn't credited as Pinhead, is credited as Priest, as in the original film, and as Clive Barker had always intended. But, and yeah, the story, we finally have one that it does follow more like the first film, where open the box, okay, you gotta bring me souls, you gotta bring me people, but it's not like Julia where she's willingly participating. Like, this is just going after this girl's friends. I also really like how the opening kill uh, showed it some, which is basically the trailer, where the guy says, "What's this?" The guy tells him it's a box. He opens it. Chains come out. I do want to say that this review is going to be very spoiler heavy, so uh, go to Hulu and check it out. Now, don't go into it thinking it's going to be as good as the first film, or that it's going to be as dark, grim, gory, nasty like the previous one, Judgment. Is not a Rob Zombie remake. It is very well shot. There's a lot of really cool shots in this that I loved, especially the scenes where Pinhead, or Priest, is way off in the distance, but it's this real wide shot. It's like this big way off in the distance, but there's like this light coming off of her. Looked really cool, especially on the steps of this mansion. Uh, it's David Bruckner, so it's going to be shot very, very well. Well acted, and it does utilize elements from the first four films good enough. And the hardest thing to pull off is to take an iconic line from an original film, put it in the reboot, and not have it sound corny, fan servicey. There is a line from the original in this one that I think did work. They do something different with the Cenobites as far as look, kind of, not really how they act, but it is another one of those stories where, okay, you open the box where you have to bring me people, essentially. But it's not as sort of consensual as with Julia in the original. And I like how they make the box its own thing in this film. Like, as you see in the trailer, it's not just a cube. The more you solve it, the more shapes it takes, and then it goes back. So, can I recommend it? Absolutely. I I mean, it's not perfect, but this is the kind of reboot I think Hellraiser has deserved for years. Now, if they could just leave it the fuck alone, that would be awesome. So, spoilers now. That that sort of opening kill, which every sort of Hellraiser was never a slasher series, but big classic horror franchises like this, you always get the opening kill. I like how this one was shot. It's the one from the trailer, because the guy solves it, the chains come in, and you hear him screaming. You hear the chains rattling off screen, and then the other guy's like on his knees in front of a configuration on its stand. And just out of focus in the background, you just see the guy get levitated with the chains. I thought that was more effective, just knowing that's going on in the background. The main story is we have this girl named Riley, played by, what was it, Odessa Azion. She's a recovering drug addict. We have her boyfriend, who she met in the program, her brother, her brother's boyfriend, and this other roommate. There's tension between the characters because of her drug use, and it doesn't spend a lot of time. I mean, you kind of get a little bit of character development. Like, the brother is sort of the protector. It's like, if you use again, you're out. But the boyfriend, Trevor, presents this idea where, you know, this place I work, there's these shipping containers, there's people with, really rich people with stuff are there. We can steal whatever, get some money for whatever reason. So they go, they break open the safe, they find a box, has the lament configuration. She kind of plays around with it. uh, and eventually, there's a falling out with her and her brother. She uses again. She's out at like a park. Her brother shows up, and then her brother disappears. Also, what I like about this puzzle piece is there's like this really tiny blade that comes out so that it pricks whoever's holding it and it soaks the blood in so it knows who to go after, or there's probably a lot of different reasons, but one, so it knows who to go after, but also so you can kind of choose who you want to send as part of, because eventually she has to give the Cenobites, I think, 5 people, 5 souls. So that's kind of how it's done. And so she has these dreams of priest and seeing these Cenobites. And so, yeah, they don't have like the black leather look, but they do have like the very neat, clean sections of skin peeled back. You do have Pinhead. You do have Chatterer, which Chatterer looks very different. Uh, no Butterball. They did not bring back Butterball, but it does have the female one with like that round thing through her cheeks. And instead of having that black leather, they're pretty much just naked. There's a lot of scarification designs on them. There's this other one that has like, I don't even know how to describe it. 'Cause the pins look more like piercings, like bars and balls on them, almost like pearl balls, like in front of its eyes, and it has like skin from its arms coming off of its shoulder. Also, the female one kind of has like the angelique look with like her scalp and connecting to her shoulders. And basically, for one, actually trying to figure out where this box came from, tracks it back to this rich occult collector, Roland Voigt, who was the rich guy from the beginning, and finds out he lived in this mansion, which the mansion is kind of a callback to the building in part 4 and to part 3 of in part 4, where the design of the building is modeled after like the designs on the box, whether it be like the gate or like this gate covering the entire house, or this sunroof with gates. It has the same patterns on it. I thought that looked really cool. And basically there's this deal where she understands, or at least I thought it was gonna be, they said something like, give me 3 more people, then you get your brother back. At least I think that's what they were meant to understand. So it's her boyfriend, brother's boyfriend, and the roommate. They're at this house. Shit's going crazy. And I will say, up until they got to the mansion, I thought, this is kind of a slow movie. Like, is this going to be another Hellraiser movie with very little Cenobites or Hellraiser? For pretty much the halfway point on, because it's 2 hours, and pretty much right around the hour mark, it is non-stop Cenobites. I mean, they are pretty much the main antagonists of this film. I really appreciated that. There's a little bit of newer exposition, like with this journal that shows what each step that you solve, the configuration, sort of what it means. Its final form is that Leviathan diamond that we see in part 2. There is a line where when they get to the mansion, there's this bar, and Colin, the brother's boyfriend, says, I think he says, "What's your pleasure, miss," or "madam." I think a call back to "What's your pleasure, sir." But anyway, so you have these Cenobite attacks, and it's very inventive when people are chosen and pulled into hell or pulled into the Cenobite world. Like when they go to leave, they're in a van. The one female roommate the box like flew and hit her in the back or something. So she's in the back bleeding, and there was this really cool sequence. When I saw this, I thought, okay, this movie's going to be inventive. This movie's going to actually, it understands that we're going into another realm or another dimension, and kind of like the dream worlds in Elm Street film. It has to be very inventive, unique. I loved it. She kind of rolls over, looks out the back windows of the van, which she just sees the trees going by, but it's this red lighting. But then the back doors just start to like go away, and it looks like these stone walls as it elongates. She turns around and the front of the van's going away, and it just gets darker and darker until she's pretty much in this like this stone corridor. And I love the look of how she's in the van, but then when she's going into hell, it's like the van is just separating, and she's stuck there, this stone area. And then that's where the Cenobites come out, and they chain her. I will say, when there's like blood and gore effects, it looks good, but there is a lot of CGI. Like the chains come, they hook her, but then like when they pull her, make her all kind of contorted and suspended, it's kind of fast and CGI. But I love the look of the blood. The blood is some of the best blood I've seen in a newer film in a while. I really liked it. There are pinhead lines that sound like something that Doug Bradley would say. Now, the voice is not as commanding or deep or just boastful as Doug Bradley's, as a deeply prophetic. But it is sort of like that, a dissonant, almost like in the Evil Dead remake, You're All Gonna Die Tonight, where it just sounds layered. But then Riley finds out that you can take the box and stab a Cenobite, and that counts as a person to give to them. So Chatterer gets it. And eventually, there's a twist where we find out, okay, the boyfriend Trevor is not who he says he is. And Roland Voight, the rich guy, never vanished, like some exposition tries to tell us, leaving us to believe, oh, the Cenobites got him, he's gone. No, he's still alive in the mansion, but he's got like this big, it almost looks like a saw trap going through his torso, but it's gold and has the same patterns as the box. And all these threads, which are his nerves, are intertwined in it, so it spins and sounds like a saw trap. And it's just like winding his nerves. He hired this guy, Trevor, to retrieve the box, open it, or have someone open it, give them the souls needed, because then when it gets to the final form and you can choose whatever you want, you find out he chose pleasure, but this is not pleasure. So the whole movie is him trying to meet the quota again, so he can say, I choose to get this off of me. Which I did not see that twist coming. It didn't seem, because a lot of movies, they have twists, it just feels gratuitous or for the sake of having twists. I didn't get that at all with this. I thought, okay, I didn't see that coming. It does serve the plot. It kind of makes him the Frank or the Dr. Chenard character for the first two. Which the end is kind of like Dr. Chenard. One of her friends, the brother's boyfriend, he even gets like the wires wrapped around him, kind of like how Chenard did in part 2. And so basically she wants to trap the Cenobites, be able to kill them, meet the soul quota, get her brother back. And again, I love the shots when Pinhead Like there's one in like the pond in front of the estate, just way off in the distance. Pinhead's just kind of whatever, however she stands, way off in the distance, perfectly centered in the shot. Again, looks great. Or on the top of the steps, we just see through the door. It kind of like a nice Kubrick shot. Again, the movie shot beautifully. I love the interior of this house. The production design is pretty good. And again, the designs on the Cenobites, I mean, when it's red and meaty, it almost looks preserved or petrified because it's not really shiny, but it has this very sterile look to it. And, you know, once it's finally solved and it's in like the Leviathan state, we see the big Leviathan come down over the sunroof. We get these, you know, shots from outside that show the house is this big in the maze for part 2, show that the whole thing is now in their world. And then we see all these random Cenobites that we haven't seen before that I guess come out when Leviathan is summoned. Like there's this really tall one that has like these pins and this round thing that holds its face, but there's no head. It's like empty space, but like right here's the face, and this is all blank. You can see through its eyes. I thought that was very interesting. A couple really tall, very pale. You do have variety of Cenobites, and that the weird one that I couldn't figure out how to describe, it like does this thing where both its hands split down the middle. And ultimately, you know, there's the lines where Riley says, "I've done enough. Enough is just a myth." There are some really cool lines in here. So Voight chooses to get this off of him, even though gifts cannot be returned. And so Pinhead offers our greatest gift, which is the Leviathan configuration. So like this giant chain comes down, grabs a hold of him. You do get the Hellraiser music as he's pulled up. The brother's boyfriend is the one that's wrapped up in wire by this other Cenobite, but that's what Riley says. I didn't choose him. I choose him, the boyfriend, for getting everyone into it. So she stabs him. And another part with CGI, he's like laying on a bed, but the bed like falls down this like stone well all the way down into hell. Thankfully, no Jesus wept. There's no Jesus wept line. But the line that they brought back that I thought worked was this new Pinhead is saying something to Voight as he's being levitated up to Leviathan to get the greatest gift that they can offer. It sort of explaining that kind of cryptically, but then ends it with, "Yes, we have such sights to show you." And believe it or not, it didn't sound corny. It didn't sound cheesy. It didn't sound forced. It goes with what's happening. So I thought that worked. And then you get the scene where, you know, it's solved. Riley decides to just give the box back. She doesn't choose anything like pain or pleasure. I guess she doesn't get her brother back. And then her and the brother's boyfriend just drive off. And then it ends with inside Leviathan, where we see Voight, his head shaved. These hooks come in, like, peel these strips back. Like, strips all up his legs and his torso, turning him into a new Cenobite. Which, when this was peeled back and stretched out, it looked like the debut EP by Chelsea Grin. So yeah, he's kind of the Chenard character, the guy that's chased what the configuration offers and then ultimately becomes a Cenobite. So yeah, it has elements of the first 4 films. I think everything it pulls from the first 4 are very well utilized. I'm glad they didn't go for a Doug Bradley knockoff. They did go for something different, which when I first saw the trailer, I thought, oh great, female Pinhead, what the hell is this gonna be? But it's not that she's female, they just have more of like a sleek look to them. It's still that layered kind of demonic voice. But they weren't trying to do Doug Bradley. This is a very different Pinhead, which I appreciated. Even a scene when she takes a pin out of her head to like stab into the female roommate, kind of like in part 3, like I am the way. And it is without a doubt the best one since 2. I mean, 3 was entertaining, but it is a low budget early 90s sequel. This, I mean, I give it all the credit in the world for how well it's shot. Uh, it is decently acted. I didn't think anybody was great, or no one really blew me away. But no one was a throwaway actor. I do like the look of all the Cenobites. They all had kind of a uniform look. Like you can all tell, like kind of like how the older films, it was like the black. They all have uniform, but with their own unique disfigurations. It's the same with here. Here they're more stark naked, and you can see more disfigurements all over their body. The pins with like the pearl balls on top, I think give it more of like an eye-catching look to it. The so the Cenobites, specifically Pinhead, they're different. It's very unique to this film, and I think they work. Everything they pulled from the older films, like the music or We Have Such Sights to Show You, it didn't feel fan servicey. It served whatever was happening or going on the screen. And we finally got one that is very, Pinhead and Cenobite heavy. It's not. And I was worried for about the first half. I was like, oh my god, this is taking too long. This is going to be another one where they just don't show up until the end. But no, like the whole second half of the movie is, pretty much like the second film. It is very, Hellraiser heavy. Yeah, definitely the best since the second one. This is definitely the reboot that Hellraiser has deserved to have. I really hope we don't get another one. I know there's going to be people saying, well, now we need a series of this. We need a follow-up to this. No, just do one good one, then leave it alone. Now, if I was... I know what I was supposed to do, and what a lot of horror channels would do. They'll take a week or two prior, review all the films, and then do a video where you rank all the films. Then you just come up with more ranking videos, getting like rank Pinhead scenes, rank how the box looks, rank death scenes, rank the Cenobites. But then when the next one comes out, you're not going to have any ranking videos. You got to do a series of videos to gear everyone up, I guess. I didn't feel like doing that. I was just going to do my own thing, then wait till this came out. And I'm glad I checked it out. David Bruckner was the guy to do this because it looks fantastic. It looks sleek. It looks polished. It doesn't look cheap. And I was very pleasantly surprised by it. The more it went on, the more I liked it. And I thought the ending was satisfying. So, yeah. Technically, that came out in, I think, 89 or 90. So it's been over 30 years since we've had a good Hellraiser movie. But now we finally have one. Finally have the reboot that we've been promised since, like, 2010 or whatever. So, I'm glad. I don't love it. I probably should have waited because if there are any flaws, I'm sure they'll hit me eventually. But there's not really any I can think of. So, very solid film. I'm glad I checked it out. So after this, I'll get back to the Stephen King and eventually get to anthologies. So thank you for watching.